we go. So I thought today we could talk about going a little bit further out with your guitar playing, maybe a bit kind of looking at a 3-year focus of where you'd like to be with your guitar playing in 3 years, should I say. So what I want you to do is to kind of come from a place where you feel inspired, and it's almost like a blank slate. So you're not looking at where you are now. It's like where, you know, from what you're working at now, where would you like to be in 3 years' time? So I'd like to put that to everybody, and just to talk through that a little bit, okay? Because I think having a little bit of a vision of where you want to be with your playing is really helpful.
Sorry, just be a minute.
To focus on the action steps and the practice you're taking now is going to lead you there. Okay, that's the most important stuff you can do now to get to where you want to be in 3 years. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, you're the furthest left here, so we'll start with you. So, is something you've ever thought about?
Well, yeah, maybe not 3 years in the future, but I think the jump, originally in my mind, beginning of this year, I was going to do grade 3. You've convinced me, or encouraged me, I should say, to go to grade 5. But that in itself is a bit of a quantum leap in that, although I think it's doable, it's a completely different field in terms of, you know, you need to know every note basically up to the 12th fret and beyond and be comfortable with that. So obviously I'd be wanting in 3 years to be able to play any note in any position without thinking about it, you know, as you would in first position. And also sight reading comfortably at grade 5 level. There's a big difference between playing a piece, a prepared piece, and going through it, than actually putting a piece in front of you at grade 5 level and actually playing the piece reasonably well from the score. So that's something, obviously, I'd like to work towards, but I mean, obviously, there's a lot of work to get into that kind of stage. So, yeah, perhaps that's the goal.
So what comes up for you there, Chris, when just if you put yourself there in your mind now, 3 years out, you know, you've got grade 5, your sight reading is good, you where you want to be. How does that feel? What comes up for you there? Does that feel achievable?
I think it's achievable. I mean, like I said, a lot's happened this year with me. We're retiring. The amount of practice, I think everybody will acknowledge that when you're learning classical guitar, the amount of practice and dedication you've got to give to it is quite a lot. And sometimes, with a lot of people, that's hard to just fit into a normal, busy family life. But obviously, once you retire, you can spend a lot more time. And, you know, there's a big difference kind of practicing when you're fresh in the morning than when you've been at work and had a hard day at work and your mind's frazzled, you know. So I think it is achievable. I think it's just a matter of putting the time in, basically, and the dedication. But at the moment, as we spoke on Monday, I'm on a bit of a high at the moment, because as soon as you get a few results, it kind of encourages you to kind of push forward. It's kind of positive feedback kind of thing. You know, the more you achieve, the more you want to try to achieve. So at the moment, I'm feeling positive. Whether I can achieve, like I said, grade 5 sight reading in 3 years, you know, it's to me, it's a big ambition, but maybe.
I don't think it's too big of an ask, to be honest, Chris. You know, 3 years out, your sight reading good. You just remember, we're aiming for progress, not perfection. You know, when we think of grades, we think that we have to get everything perfect, and that's not usually the case.
Yeah, I mean, one difference I am doing at the moment, which is absolutely I think, critical to what I didn't do in the past. It's like learning this take 5 piece, the grade 5 piece. And I would normally look at a few bars, work them out, and then just practice, and get muscle memory, and then move on and more or less forget the score. So once I completed the piece, if I made a mistake, I'd look at the score and it was only semi-familiar. And now I'm doing a piece and I'm like going over the score again and saying, understand what's actually on the music as you're playing, rather than learning it and moving on. You know, I think muscle memory is a good thing, but I think I need to be looking at the score, because if you make a mistake, sometimes you glance at it and think, this is only semi-familiar, even though you've been looking at it for months, you know. So
muscle memory can be hit and miss. You shouldn't rely entirely on muscle memory. So, other things you can be doing is singing the melody. So you're connecting with the music orally. So you do this a lot. You're tapping out the rhythms. Also, you could add a bit of theory in there. You could even look at the harmony. What chords, you have grade 5 theory of music. So you could actually look at the chords and be like, what's underpinning the harmony here.
Well, one of the things that we talked about, not last week because you did the seminar, is the markings I've started putting on the page now. Fingers. I think Phil, you mentioned this about fingers. I mean, I'm not only, I just play random fingers at times, even with the same piece. And now, once I've kind of got a few bars, I will actually put the fingers on and try to stick to those fingers. So it becomes, but trouble is, you move on, then you think, hang on, I'm not using the same fingers again. So I have started marking a lot of things down on the music now.
Yeah, that's really important to keep everything consistent.
Yeah.
Because from what I find, if I don't keep consistent fingerings in my practice, that'll show at the end result. So when you're performing or you're doing a grade, there's that little bit amount of pressure on you, it falls to pieces. So one of the things that's good is by keeping the same fingerings, your fingers don't know any different, if that makes sense.
Another little thing that I think we talked a little bit about this on Monday, and again, this is marking down the music. I found that not all editors, you mentioned about editors on Monday, you might do the beginning piece and they might mark the bar or the position, and then as it gets further on the music, it gets repeated, but they don't mark the bar and they don't mark the position. So
every editor is different. Yeah.
As you glance at it, it actually looks at first sight as something totally different till you figure out it's just something you've been doing on earlier in the music. Because you might look at the notes thinking, and they're within a bar, but they've not actually marked the bar further on.
Yeah.
So I'm going through now in this piece and marking where all the bars are, all the positions as they were marked on the first page. I find that helps a lot. Yeah,
and it's good, if you ever come back to this piece of music in years to come, it's all there, it's all laid out, on the page. It's just revision then. You don't have to start from like this, scratch, working all the fingers out again. It's all laid out, you've got all the details on, and it's easier to revise.
And the last thing, the other thing that I try to pick a bar at random and think, can I play this bar? No, because it's all right, muscle memory, you're going through it, get through the piece maybe. I try to just pick a bar, any bar at random, and see if I can play that bar off the score. And I find a lot of times I can't.
Yeah, and do you know why that is?
Yeah, because I'm not reading them. I'm actually just relying on. It's a bit like when you're driving, and sometimes you think, did I go through them traffic lights? How did I get it? But you've done it. Fine, you've got there, but I feel you're not taking notice of the score. I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think.
There's something learned there, isn't there? Yeah. You're working this out, which is good. You're figuring out why, if you can't pick it up just at any point in the music. So one of the things you just said there is because you're not reading the music. So that's
the thing is that I think it's important that you do it, especially if it's in a grade. If you do make a mistake or even stop, if you can pick it up from any bar, at least you have a chance of recovering. Whereas if you can't, and usually then the nerves kick in and it's over with at that point.
So would you say that being able to pick it up anywhere in the music gives you confidence in performance?
I definitely think, I don't think I would take a grade 5 piece now without the pieces I've learned. You know, even if you mark the bars and throw a dice or whatever, and saying, right, I should be able to play that line now. And I think I'd only feel confident taking the grade when I could do that now, because I know in the past that if I make a mistake, it's over. I just can't recover. You know, because I think I'm just relying on muscle memory too much.
Just remember as well, performing's also a craft. What we can build up is this perfect moment when we're going to perform a piece of music. You know, we're constantly waiting for this perfect moment when everything's right, it feels right, then we'll put it out there. So that's not usually the case. Performing's a craft, and I know Phil. This is one of the things that Phil does, and I really like this. That he's got a piece of music that it's not necessarily finished, but he'll perform it. You know, can you jump in there, Phil, with that? Because you perform.
Yeah, I think it's just getting confidence, really, being in front of a group. I mean, it can be just a general audience, or as Sean and I go on a Tuesday night to the meeting in Culture, you've got like 20 odd classical guitarists, many of whom are really advanced. And I don't worry about, you know, if there's 3 pages on a piece of music, I'll play the first 1.5 pages and just get a feel of the reaction. And also I ask people what the reaction is. And there's a thing about guitarists that they tend not to criticise each other, but I think on the Tuesday night they've started to come in and say, well, you know, why don't you use these fingerings? And I've noticed you're playing everything with 1 finger or something like that. And it helped. But just going back to what Chris said earlier, he said he needs to know every note up to grade 12. Sorry,
up to 12th fret.
Yeah, 12th fret. And believe me, Chris, I'm doing grade 8 and I don't know any notes, all the notes up to fret 12. So yeah, I think you're trying to put yourself under too much pressure. My advice would be to, you know, enjoy it. And if David thinks you're good enough for grade 5, I think that's enough, really. But what I would say is, have you considered doing grade 5 theory?
I've done it.
Oh, you've done it, have you? Oh, sorry. Right,
yeah.
Oh, well, exactly. Well, there you are. So, you know, you're all lined up for grade 6 then, aren't you?
Yeah, the problem is I did my grade. What happened is we was moving house, and just before we moved, I've been doing the theory with David, and I thought if I don't do it now, all the work I've done, if I don't take the exam now, I'll never take it. And I took the exam and I passed. But the problem was that was in 2013. And I've kind of not even thought about a note because my guitar playing's virtually been on stop for 7 years. I've not really thought much about the theory, and I'm just saying to David that I hope it's still inside my head somewhere.
It definitely will be. Yeah, it'll be there somewhere, Chris.
But it becomes. I can see the point too about the grade 5 theory now, because I think as you start going up the grade, it becomes a little bit more relevant, and you know, I think it is more interesting knowing what's actually going on rather than just playing the music.
True.
Yeah, totally.
I don't. And maybe grade 6 is in 6 years' time ambition. I don't know.
Phil, should we move over to you? So,
I'll do it
in 3 years' time. Where do you see yourself being with you playing?
Okay, so I think first point to say is in 3 years' time I'll be 77. So the first thing I want to know is, are my fingers still going to be working?
I'm sure they will.
So that's a critical thing. But yeah, I mean, I think you know, grade 8 seems to be a kind of pinnacle for a lot of people, but to me, it's just a stepping stone for something else. And there are a lot of pieces I'd love to play. and I would say that in the next 3 years or whatever it is, then I would want to try and play more advanced pieces, really. You know, because all this preparation of grades and scales and sight reading and whatever is all to do with being able to play at a higher level and enjoying it. And to me, it's all to do with enjoying what you do. But I think, yeah, I mean, as you get older, then, you know, you get other problems. And I do get this problem with arthritis in my thumbs first thing in the morning. So I think by playing the guitar, it actually helps. I think really. But, yeah, that's where I'm coming from, really.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, thank you for sharing that, Phil. Mike, can we move over to you?
Yeah, 3 time. Basically, I'd like to be able to see some music, probably something, and then just maybe chord-wise, being able to play. Or if somebody said, right, we're going to just shouting chords and like play with somebody. So basically, it's just being able to do more some type play, rather, you know. Do you get what I'm?
Yeah, sorry, it's just cutting out a little bit there, Mike. So I'm just picking up on bits that you're saying there. So if I reel this back and just, so one is being able to play a lot of chords, have a lot of chords memorized, and be able to jam along with others.
Yeah. That's and the other, it's just to be able to socially be able to play things. You know, rather than like just concentrating on it. I'd rather, I would like to play, being able to play simple pieces easily.
Would you say that's the case now? Would you say you have some pieces that you can play really well?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting into them, yeah. But what I find, if I put them down for a while, I find it, I've got to start again when I pick them up.
So
You know,
if we just dig a little bit deeper into starting again, do you mean that it's just after you've done like a 5-minute warm up, you're back in the zone with them? Is that what you mean?
No. If I don't play something for a couple of weeks, I find it difficult to get back into playing it how I played it. Okay.
So it sounds like just being a little bit more consistent there. You know, if we do leave too much of a gap, you know, it can feel a little bit like, you know, it's not as though we're starting it afresh. It's there somewhere, like Chris with his theory. You know, he's done all the work there, so it will be there somewhere. It's just kind of like a bit of revision. So I'd say if you're working on a set of songs that you want to play really well, is try not, if you're working on one of them, try not to put the other on the back burner and leave it for too long. You know, it's like kind of juggle, if you're juggling 3 pieces, yeah, keep them all.
Yeah, that's what I try to do now. Where, even if I'll like play one through and then concentrate on the one I'm working on.
Yeah. So you bring one song as your main focus, and you keep the others ticking over. Is that?
Well, that's what I'm trying to. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you find that?
It's coming along.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not as bad as it was.
Okay. And what you gotta remember here, Mike, is that once you reach a level, and we'll bring someone else into this as well, who's taken a grade, is that once you reach that level, it's like a benchmark. Okay. It always feels a struggle to reach a grade. Okay, because you push in your technique and, you know, you're growing as a guitarist. Well, that's a benchmark. So when you play any pieces that are not as challenging as that, they're a lot easier. Then you move up to the next ladder, so you're pushing yourself again, and then the pieces, the grade 1 pieces would feel easier. So it's kind of, as you move up the ladder, anything underneath that feels a lot easier. Does anybody want to chip in there with that?
I agree. I totally agree with Mike, because I'm exactly the same. Where as I've learned pieces in the past, played them reasonably well, simple pieces, and you go on and you do other pieces, and then you come back to them. And it's not like starting them from scratch, but you think I shouldn't be struggling with this because I could play it 6 months ago, and it takes you quite a few times to go through it. And it surprises me. You think you've learned it, and you was able to play it quite well in the past, and you go back to it, and it's not like, as I said, not like starting a new piece, but it is difficult to play it well until you've gone through it a few times. So I don't know what happens in the meantime.
It's like, imagine you running a marathon. You put all this training in to get, is it 26 miles a marathon? Is that right? Yeah. I've never run one, as you can tell. You do all this training and you're at the top of your fitness. You run the marathon. You don't run for 6 months, and then trying it and expecting yourself to run 26 miles straight off would you say that would be unrealistic?
Well, for me.
I think it would be for most people, wouldn't it? So, there'd be a period of time where, that endurance would still be with them because they've achieved it. But there'd be a period of time where they need to pick back up on that running to get to that level again.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
The other thing is, and I agree with Michael again on this, it's playing chords, like even the 2-note chords reliably, because when they're in the melody, it's all right seeing it, a couple of notes together, but when it's actually part of the melody, to actually see it, recognize it, and just play that instantly within that melody. And I don't know whether any of us should be doing separate chord practice, like I said, it's all right playing a chord and you learn the piece, but if you sight read and see 3 notes, I've got to look at the notes, all right, my fingers go there. But if you're trying to play it and sight read it, you've obviously lost it then.
This is where Mike's at an advantage here, because he's doing the steel string. It's all about chords.
Right.
So in classical guitar, we don't tend to get the chord symbols. We just get the chords in the score. So what I would say here, I remember watching a masterclass once. I think Craig Ogden was taking the masterclass, and this guitarist was really advanced, and he didn't know what a simple G chord was, or a C or a D, and he'd taken grade 8 classical guitar. Obviously he could play them, and he couldn't play them, but he couldn't name them. So it is worth, when I sight read chords, because obviously I come from an electric guitar background as well as Phil does, and Mike's doing that. So when I look at the musical score, I can look at the notes and know what chord it is. I can see all those notes and be like, G. I can look at that, that's E7, that's A minor. Phil, are you the same there?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. You can see the pattern, the formation on it. Yeah. I don't know. Do you really need to know what they are, though, if you're playing a classical guitar? The actual chord shapes, because it'll never appear on a piece of music, will it?
No.
It won't say E7 or E diminished or whatever.
I think it's helpful to know them within sight reading, because you're giving all those notes a name, and if we name something, we give it meaning, and we're more likely to memorize it. It's like, Rosemary, if you're doing a maths equation, you've got all these numbers. I don't know anything about maths, so you have to bear with me here, but if you've got all the numbers and then the x's, and that theory would have a name, wouldn't it? I'm assuming so. Yeah. So it's giving it meaning, so you remember the pattern, or whatever it is in maths. Sorry, I don't know much about maths, but you get the idea. So what I would say, if you really want to get good at sight reading chords, is just take the notebook. I can't remember the page, but the section of the book where it's chords, and just write the chord symbols out. And if you're uncertain what the name of the chord is, then I can help you with that. So if it was an E and A minor, then you'll just remember that pattern, visually see it, and then you think A minor, then the pattern, you straight onto it.
I think it's not just knowing the pattern though. It's like seeing those notes, 3 notes, 4 notes of a chord that's within a melody, and just instantly kind of forming that shape to play one note as a chord and move on from there. Because that would stop me, especially in sight reading. You'd be going along, yeah, I've got the melody. Next thing a chord comes, it's like come to a stop and kind of figure out 3, 4 notes and put your fingers there.
If you had a guitar in your hands now, Chris, and I said play G chord as quick as you can, how long would that take you?
Yeah, I could do that easily because you kind of know it. And
so it's nothing new. It's there. All you need to do is recognise it, what it looks like on the score. And
well, funny enough,
yeah.
One of the I should have wrote this down. I was going to ask you about, is there some simple chord practice, not just practicing where the chords are, but visually recognising that on the score and instantly forming that shape.
Okay, this is where we make connections with theory and sight reading. You know, when I think it was the first part 1 of this practice sessions, online practice sessions we was doing. Remember, I pulled that map up on the screen and everything, it had all that interconnectedness. So this is how the theory serves the music and the sight reading, is that in a key you have set chords or set chord progressions. Okay, so if you're in the key of C, like your primary chords, C, F, and G, without going into too much detail here, then you have your secondary chord, which is A minor, E minor, and so on, and D minor. So I look at the key in the music, and if there's lots of chords, all these chords come to mind. So I'm kind of predicting what they might be, and I know what a perfect cadence is. It's 5/1. So I know then that would be like either G7 to C. So the sight reading becomes predictable. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah. But the problem is, I understand there must be some theory there, because the more you get into this music, you know, it's not just random. You know, everything's mathematical basically, and but knowing there's something there, it's like, is there some simple exercise, or is there an exercise that could be applied to, if you're in a certain key? I think really what I'm trying to say is, how do you recognise a chord shape instantly on a score?
So I'm at a slight advantage here, because when I studied my A-level music, I did 2 years of studying Bach's music, the harmonies. That was like I think it was like 2 hours a week or something like that of studying harmony, and we did like Vivaldi and jazz and all that stuff. So that really helped me to just look at a chord and know what it is. Okay. So I think, yeah, looking back, that was one thing that helped. Also playing electric guitar and steel string acoustic guitar, because I'd learned the chord shapes. So,
well, the only one, sorry if I can just cut in there. Sure. Little thought I did have is actually to pick a chord, beginning of the week, wherever it may be, A minor, whatever that chord is. Not just play it, because obviously you could play an A minor, but just look at the score, thinking that is the shape of, you know, where the notes need to be on the score. So not only do you get absolute used to playing that chord shape, you actually recognise it on the score. I think that's, learning the chord isn't mega difficult, because, you know, you can pick a few chords a week and learn them. It's recognising them on the score that I find really difficult to do it instantly. I can pick it apart, but, you know, I would have to look which each note went, yeah, right, I know where that is.
So what you would need to do there, Chris, just before we move over to Rosemary, because we've got about 8 minutes left, is to, in your notebook, preferably the first one, is to just get the book and write the chords over. You know, the chord symbols over all those chords.
That's a good idea, then.
And then play them.
Yeah. And play them regularly. Then you're used to seeing that pattern.
Yeah, because that's how I do. I mean, probably, you know, other guitarists might have different ways of reading chords, but mine is completely associated with, I'm looking at the score, I know that's an A minor, I know the shape of A minor, so then that puts out the middle ground. It's just an instant A minor or G, C. You know, just if you was reading chords chord symbols, really, you know, off a sheet. Yeah.
There is the other point. There is the other point, of course, that you've got first position. Let's say it's A minor. First position A minor, second position A minor, and third position A minor. So as you go up the frets, you're going to have a different configuration in the music for what that chord will be. So you're in deep water here.
Yeah.
We're talking,
I
Chris.
won't worry too much about the chords, to be honest.
Yeah. You want to just start out with the open position ones first of all. Okay, that's your starting point. Okay, Rosemary, could we? Would you like to share with us, where do you see your guitar playing in 3 years' time? What's most important for you?
Well, it's a kind of combination of what, you know, I quite like to, I mean, it's probably too ambitious this, but I quite like to be doing grade 5 in 3 years' time, which is probably far too ambitious, but nevertheless, a goal is just something to aim for, isn't it? But I'd also like to be able to, you know, as is it Michael was saying about being able to, you know, somebody like my son sings, so if he was singing a song, I could get music and strum along to him. You know, I'd like to be able to do that. But I think from what you're saying, this might happen, that it comes out of the classical and the theory. Because I'd also like to do the grade 5 theory by then as well. Because I see it as all fitting together, really. I mean, I don't know whether it will or not, but that's...
Yeah, it does. It's, you know, it's all interconnected, as you know, as you've probably seen. Cool. So for you, Rosemary, it's grade 5 playing and grade 5 theory.
You've not started laughing and falling off your chair when I said that. So
no. You know, you
so
could
there might be a bit of hope.
I'm a believer in 3 years. In 3 years, you could be 10 times what you are now if you take the right steps. That's what I believe anyway. So I remember, just to share a quick story, being at school, and when, you know, with a young mind, I remember the school teacher saying, I think it was like, I can't remember what lesson it was entirely, but it just sticks in my mind that the teacher said, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Now you ask that to somebody who's 13, you know, 10 years seems an eternity, doesn't it? You know, you're like, so what you got to do is 3 years, it feels tangible. If you put it too far out there, you don't, it doesn't feel achievable. But 3 years, it just feels that it's enough of a stretch to push you, but it also feels tangible, that, you know, and it's achievable. So I always use 3 years, and it gets you to think bigger as well. You know, if it's a year, you don't think as big as if it's 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years, you know, and it's like, say, it feels achievable.
When Phil was saying before about the different positions for A minor or whatever, well, presumably that's because you're able to read the music, isn't it? So if you can read the music and you know where they are, then you've got the chords, haven't you? I mean,
well, no, it's not strictly true, that, Rosemary.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm going back to when I play the electric guitar, and you just get a chord pattern. So in a way, you know, like on a tab music.
Yeah.
You just see the chords written out in tab, and you just play them according to which strings and, you know, whatever they are. But in classical, to be honest, I mean, I'm playing this Bach piece at the moment, and every bar there's either an accidental or you know, a neutral. But basically, it just changes all the time, and you're getting these weird chords coming out all the time, and it'd be too complicated to try and work out what they all are. You just get on with the piece. But I was going to ask something, Rosemary, from me. You said it a few weeks ago that you didn't really practice enough at grade 1. So how on earth are you going to get to grade 5 in 3 years then?
Well, I'd have to practice, obviously.
I can vouch, because I'm holding Rosemary. I'm holding Rosemary accountable that she's practicing now. Okay. I check in with.
But I'll be joking, Rosemary.
No, it's.
But I know, I think it's true. You can do anything you want.
Absolutely true. Yeah. Well, yeah. Because it's any learning. It's like when if you don't, and even if you could do it and you don't do it for a while, as Chris, is it not Chris? Yeah, Chris was saying, then you've got to. It goes, doesn't it? I mean, that's true of anything. So it's the practice that's crucial. I mean, I absolutely accept all that.
If you want to make progress in something, consistency is the thing. Keep really consistent in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got about 2 minutes left. I feel like we're on countdown. Maybe you should download some countdown theme music to.
What's that notebook you were talking about, David?
What's that? Sorry, Rosemary.
What's the notebook that you and Chris were talking about?
The Notebook, solo guitar playing book. You have that one, Rosemary.
Oh, is it that black one?
Yeah. Sorry, I just refer to it as the Notebook, but I think the type of it's solo guitar playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, it is quite a useful book, that. But talking to David, I don't think you're relying on it 100%, because I think because I thought you'd use it all the time, Dave, when I first started with you. But it's useful for certain things.
Book to just dip in and out of, to be honest.
Yeah.
So my computer's saying we've got about a minute left. So if it cuts out, that's why. So if you want to just keep talking until it does, I'm happy to do that. If you want to say your goodbyes, we can do. So.
Yeah. The only thing I would say to Rosemary, I think once you get into it, more you want to practice. Well, that's with me.
Yeah.
So once you feel you're getting a result, I think you want to push on more.
Well, that's why it's useful listening to you guys. It really is, because I think, this is the result of you practicing, isn't it? So get on with it.
Yeah. I think what I'd like to say, David, is I'm looking forward to the day when we all meet up in the flesh and we all play a mini concert to each other.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's put.
That's a 3-year goal.
We could actually do a workshop that's not virtual, in the future. We're all in person. Obviously, a meter distance apart, but it'd work.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. So I'm just going to say goodbye because I think it's going to end any minute. So thank you for attending today. And
thank you.
The weekend. Okay. And I'll see you all soon. Okay.
See you.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.